Hi everyone, welcome to JavaScript Bytes where we solve real-world problems in bite-sized chunks. Since you're here, I'm assuming you have a situation like this. You write a click handler in JavaScript, use this keyword, and it doesn't point to the button. It's undefined or even window. Why? Why did that happen? Shouldn't this be the button you clicked? In this video, I'll explain exactly why this goes wrong in click handlers, and I'll show you every common scenario plus how to fix them. So here I am in Visual Studio Code and I have created this HTML file here. Now I'll add some code first, reproduce the issue, and then we'll get into how and why afterwards. Here's some common beginner code, a button that says click me, and when it's clicked, it runs a function called say hi, defined at the top level of the script. So let's see what happens when we click the button. You might have expected this to log the button, but it didn't. It logged undefined. So why does this happen when you use onClick equal to say hi in HTML? Here's the key. When you assign function name followed by parentheses to onClick attribute in HTML, you're not really assigning a function like you would in JavaScript. You're giving the browser a string, and the browser takes that string and turns it into a new function behind the scenes, something like this. New function is a real thing in core JavaScript which converts a string to a function. It builds a brand new function using that string, and inside that function, your say hi is just being called like a normal function, not as part of any object. In JavaScript, when a function is called like that, just by its name, not attached to anything, it runs without a this context. More specifically, any top level code or function in your script, like the say hi function at the top level in your script tag, runs in what is called a global execution context. And if you're using use strict, which most modern code does, this in that global execution context becomes undefined. In older JavaScript, it would have defaulted to window, but strict mode disables that. We can actually disable use strict line to see for ourselves. So if I refresh, see, this is now the window object. So even though you clicked a button, the way the browser sets up and runs that function means your code has no idea what this should be, and that's why you get undefined. If this part still feels fuzzy, that's totally normal. I've got a full video that explains exactly how this works in every situation, inside objects, inside events, even arrow functions. I'll link it below if you want to go deeper. But let's keep going with the fix for this specific case. So let me make some changes to this code. Now look at this version. Instead of using HTML and onClick attribute, I assigned this function using JavaScript. And this time, this should be the button. Let's go ahead and try it out. Here we go. This is the button object. Let me get rid of this part. So how did that work? That's because the browser knows we are assigning a proper event handler in JavaScript, and it runs the function like this. The call button part is important. It tells JavaScript, hey, inside this function, this should point to the button. And that's why this works the way you expect here. I have a page open with call function documentation. So as you can see, it has a good coverage of what is this and especially this important line. Methods like call, apply, and bind can refer this to any object. And if we go to this example over here, const person equal, which is an object with a function called full name. Note over here, person.fullname.call being passed person1 would result in John Doe being written, which is specific to person1. But if we go to the second example where it is being called with person2, the same code results in Mary Doe being returned from the function. All right, the second technique I'm about to show you is going to use the addEventListener. So let me make the changes first. Okay, that should work the same way. The browser sets this to the element when the function is called. Here we go. So this works the same way. When the button is clicked, the browser runs your function using .call behind the scenes, just like it would with onClick. It passes the button as the first argument to the .call, which makes this refer to the element. So even though it looks like a regular function, JavaScript is calling it in a special way with this set to the element that triggered the event. Next, we are going to try and solve this with arrow functions and what I would like to call arrow function trap. So let me make the change and see. So here's a common mistake, using an arrow function in a click event handler and expecting this to refer to the button. See, it is writing window to the console, not the button. Let's say I use strict, and you would still see window object being logged. So let me explain all of this. Arrow functions don't behave like regular functions. They don't create their own this, they inherit it from the scope in which they are operating. If you define this arrow function in a global scope, like we are doing here, then this inside is either undefined or window, but definitely not the button. In strict mode, regular functions that are called without a context, like just say hi, get this equal to undefined. But arrow functions don't get their own this at all. They just inherit it. And here's the catch. At the top level of a script, this is still the global object, which is window in the browser, even in strict mode. So if you define an arrow function there, it inherits this equal to window, not undefined. That's why you see window, not undefined, being logged to the console when you expected the button. I hope that clarified the confusion why in strict mode functions would get undefined but arrow functions would get window. So if you still want to use an arrow function, that's totally fine. Just don't rely on this keyword. Instead, use the event object that gets passed in automatically, like this. Okay, let's see it in action. Refresh, click me, and the text content changed to clicked. So arrow functions are great, but in event handlers, this doesn't mean what you think. Either use a regular function to get the correct this, or use event.target instead to do all the manipulation you need to do on the button element. Instead of this, if I change it to and show you again, we are gonna see the button. So that is pretty much doing the same thing, just not with this. Okay, let's now see a scenario if we already have a function like say hi and we want to use this. Okay, what do you expect would happen? Let's see. It worked. So good news. If say hi is a regular function, you can pass it directly to addEventListener, and this will still point to the button. The browser takes care of that for you. All right, if you want total control of what this should be when you call say hi, we have another trick up our sleeves. So let me show you. Okay, what do you expect would happen if I refresh and click me? Now this becomes the custom object. That's the beauty of bind. You'd only use .bind if you want to permanently lock this to a specific object, like if say hi is a method from somewhere else and needs to run with that context. Alright, we have reached the end of our video. Here are the key ideas. Regular functions get this when they are called. Arrow functions don't get this at all. They just inherit it from the scope. At the top level of a script, this is window. So arrow functions defined there will use that, not the button. Inline onClick or onClick attribute in HTML element definitions is not a real event handler. It's just like calling a global function. The best way to avoid confusion, use addEventListener with a regular function. If this helped clear up mystery of this in click events, give it a like and subscribe for more beginner friendly JavaScript content. I would highly encourage you to watch a full-length video on behavior of this keyword in JavaScript as it explains a lot of concepts we just brushed past in this one. It also covers a lot of usage scenarios. And if you've got any other confusing bug that's driving you wild, drop it in the comments and I'll break it down in plain English. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.